Innovation is always good, but it's necessary to make a great game. Well, that would depend on the current circumstance and the market, and fortunately for many game developers, all the necessary printworks have been laid out in front of you. So no, not really. You don't really need to create something completely new to make a great game. Now recently, a news came out that RIOT MMO is now going on a full reset back to square one, and we most likely won't even hear of it for several years to come. The reason behind this is because apparently the vision that they had or what they were developing wasn't too different from many MMOs we've played or have come out so far, and they want to introduce a game that truly feels like an evolution in the genre. Now there are a few things to take into consideration regarding this, right, or that we should take into consideration, so let's dive into this. Now the reasons I had high hopes and anticipation for RIOT MMO were because 1. RIOT as a gaming company has had a major success with their leading games like League of Legends, Teamfight Tactics, and Valorant, to give a few names out there. Now I'll be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of those types of games, nor am I really the targeted audience for those titles, which is okay, doesn't change the fact that they're highly successful. But I have played Legend of Runeterra, which is on mobile, and it's a card game. It is genuinely one of the better card games out there. That's mostly fair from my experience. Now, the world of Runeterra is one of the most popular and well-established lore in gaming. You can't deny that, right? But it also suffers from obscurity and just there being an abundance of it, to where there really isn't a coherent narrative or world building, not that I'm aware of, especially given how big League of Legends has gone and the fact that it has a massive character rosters. So I mean, how do you balance or put all of that in a story or in a game to where it makes sense? Of course, all of that sort of changed when the animated show on Netflix, Arcane, premiered, and this show was one of the few shows out there that I would call perfect. You can nitpick all you want, but it doesn't change the fact that the characterization and the world building is nothing short of masterful, right? Let's be honest here. To have a game be constructed in that same universe is a no-brainer, right? There are those who would prefer the RIOT MMO to take more from League of Legends in terms of the lore and story than the show Arcane. But I strongly disagree, because that would only lead the MMO, the RIOT game, to be suffering from that same convoluted lore that League of Legends has, and it will alienate many from really investing in the story. But to build off on the show instead, you could create a more concise narrative that both longtime League of Legends fans and newcomers can get around. Right? I don't see why that wouldn't be the route that you would choose to go. The first issue is that creating an MMO that breathes similarity of other games of the genre shouldn't be your main concern. Every or most game in any genre resemble one another to some degree, and they can work, we've seen it work, just as long as you leave your own touch and keep it up to date. The reality is, a game doesn't die out or decline in population because it's too copy and paste, or that it's the same thing we've seen before. Not quite. You can take inspiration from an already existing IP, but if you do it just as good, if not even better, or provide some sort of incentives that wasn't there in the original, then you can thrive just as much, if not more, depending on how closely you communicate with the audience, which is really what it all comes down to. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for originality and creating something from the ground up. However, that typically comes from a case of oversaturation, and while you can certainly argue that to some extent, the thing is, no game has ever really put one and one together. Or what I meant is, they haven't taken the best of all worlds to one piece. Some have taken one and then added with 0.2 or 0.5, but never one. You get what I'm saying, right? So it's really a matter of doing the basic equation to produce a really promising product. An entirely new concept or innovation of the genre isn't necessary, although I'm all for it, don't get me wrong. I think there's definitely ways that you can innovate when it comes to certain features, but when it comes to like resetting everything or just creating something from the ground up, I don't think that's necessary. I don't know if you even want to go through all that hassle. That also comes with a lot of risk and untapped market that you can never be too sure if what you're doing is even going to appeal to people. So it's just something to take in consideration, right? It's not as simple as we want innovations, we want new concepts. If you know what worked and what didn't, then that gives you a lot more reassurance than creating something entirely new. For those of you who want some scope of this, right, let me give you a few examples. World of Warcraft is undoubtedly the king of MMORPG, even till this day. But its designs aren't really original, nor did it reinvent the wheel at all. Because before WoW, there was EverQuest 1 that came out in 1999. WoW pretty much took everything they could out of the features and concepts that were a huge hit in EverQuest 1 and expanded upon them, right? It improved upon the features that were implemented in EverQuest. While EQ was largely successful and really the first real breakthrough in the genre, WoW surpassed its success as we come to know by a large margin. And speaking of Riot, League of Legends is also not original. Not really. League of Legends resembled Dota 1 or aka Defense of the Ancients in so many ways. Really, the first Dota spawned most of the MOBAs that are so popular nowadays. I could go on and on about how the most successful popular games within the past few decades are in no way associated with the new concept, if you would like to put it that way, but rather they improve upon what worked and evolve over time with their players, right? They didn't reinvent the wheel. They're not, 100% original or like a new concept that we never seen before. Don't get me even started on the cesspool of gachas and anime themed games. You get the idea. Ultimately, what will determine a game's success is really how often you put contents, updates, and how well you respond to players' feedbacks. This isn't rocket science, right? This has been well known for a while, but unfortunately not always implemented. The second issue is that this whole idea of reinventing the wheel, even with the reasons I just explained. Another thing to consider is that different or new doesn't necessarily equate to a better product. It could stand out, but at the end of the day, quality will remain a key component depending on what ideas you have in store for the game and just how innovative it is. It'd be like flipping a coin essentially to see if people will even accept something that seems entirely foreign to a genre that most already have some sort of expectation of. It could be so strange and different that it wouldn't even fit in the genre at all. It's a pretty daunting task to undertake regardless. You can see, again, the problem with the genre isn't that there's too many copy and paste. We know what worked and what doesn't, so you just put one and one together and adapt along the way. In addition, another problem that you'll come across is that you may think your designs are unique and original, or that you came up with something that no other MMO or game has implemented. But we're looking at least 3 to 4 years before we even see any real announcement or update on the development, let alone any actual footage. By that time, your ideas may not be so new. Your competition today won't be the same as within the next few years when next-gen games become more frequent updates or they get more frequent releases. So then what will you do then? Unless you dig up something that's extremely extraordinary in design and you're so confident in this decision, you're basically walking into the future like a dark cave without a single light. So as you can see, this decision comes with a lot of uncertainties that could easily be avoided had you just taken the alternative route of just refining what have been established. Who knows, maybe they come up with something truly remarkable and revolutionary, but who can really tell at this point with so little info we have? I think that's about all I wanted to say. We'll have to see what transpires over the next few years. With that being said, thank you for watching. Consider subscribing, leaving comments or a like, and I will see you soon.